Hopefulness 2.0, April 10th. That's my carrot cake. Could use a little less clove. Kind of creates this aftertaste that I'm not too thrilled about. It's not terrible. It's just that it's a little bit much for me. But it's, it's kind of part of the process, understanding the whole thing and making sense of it, and figuring out what needs to be adjusted. Got a bunch of dishes to wash. Don't know when. Oh yeah, yesterday I had the vent hood on, so I try to turn that off if I'm thinking about it, but I just totally forgot yesterday, so. That's why the audio sucks. But I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so. I could have just not uploaded, but whatever. Yeah, the whole process was just kind of a mess. I mean, I will say that having some kind of mise en place would be better, of course, but having all of this stuff necessary as well, like having a stand mixer and whatnot, that would also, make it better. But I'm probably not going to do this one again. It's just so much. But the frosting is definitely like the main event. Now, considering how little there is per bite, I'm gonna have to kind of figure out whoa, that's a strong hit of clove, holy shit. And I didn't put that much in here. I think she said there was like a 1.5 teaspoons. I'm not even sure, I can't remember. Might be less. It's possible that I've mismeasured. I'll admit to that at least. It's very spongy. It's not super dense. But yeah, the clove really does stand out. That's whatever. Whew. Oh, God. So this is my cup that I was using for my cereal last couple days because I was eating that while I was making the other stuff. I like it too because it's like it works out. I get like I'll dump in like 3 servings of the cereal, which is what, $280 grams each, 2/3 of a cup, or 280 calories. Sorry. So I mean, it's a decent amount, of course. We're talking what, 240 plus another 600, so 840. And then 2 cups of milk. So I'm easily, just with those two, I'm getting my 200 calories, or 2,000 calories, more so. But it's whatever, you know. It's just a thing to consume functionally. I mean, yeah, there's a decent amount of fat. There's not a whole lot of sugars, surprisingly. I mean, it says total carbohydrates 42, total sugars 14, with 13 grams of added sugars. I mean, the first ingredient is whole rolled oats. Now, of course, milled cane sugar, whole rolled wheat, expeller pressed canola oil, coconut, honey, cornstarch, almond, molasses, natural flavor, salt. So, but I mean, you know, for what it is, it's just a great, you know, it does the trick. It's satisfying. It's not like I'm eating, like Cheerios or whatever. Like my favorite is Fruity Pebbles. And that shit's straight sugar, pretty much. And I would say that if anybody is making any kind of adjustments in life when it comes to healthy eating, it's like, it's generally a better idea to start slow, to transition instead of just jump. You know, nobody gets into a plane and just says, you know what, I'm gonna jump. They have prepared themselves for jumping out of an airplane. They go take some lessons at a skydiving school or something, and you have a parachute and all sorts of other stuff. You try to make a jump out of an airplane on your first time a success, and then later in life you can be like, yeah, today I'm gonna go jump out of an airplane, and then go do it, because you've already been prepared for it. You've already done it multiple times in your life. You know how, you know what you're gonna do. You know how you're gonna respond to it, and so on and so forth. That's why, like, the whole New Year's resolutions thing usually doesn't work. Unless you've been actively doing a thing that's associated with that resolution. You know, if quitting smoking, for instance, is a New Year's resolution, but you're still smoking a pack a day, good fucking luck. But if quitting smoking is your New Year's resolution, and you smoke a pack a day, but your resolution is to quit by the end of the year, and then you at least try to cut down on a cigarette, a cigarette a day, So, like, for the first month, instead of, smoking an entire pack a day, you're smoking a pack minus one. That's 20, and then it goes down to 19, because now you're smoking 19 a day. And then in the second month, you're like, well, I'm going to do another cigarette. So you're down from 19 a day to 18 a day. And then maybe by June, you're like down to 10, because you've decided to make a certain adjustment at some point. And then by December, maybe you're only smoking 1 or 2 a day. And then by January 1st, you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna not smoke. But, and here's a smart way of doing it, depending on how you go about things. Like, some things it's easier to quit than others. And it's easier to quit something when you've tapered off, especially towards the end of it. Because when you're, especially when you're, inducing chemicals like this into your system. So it's sort of an exponential drop. You start small and small, and then there's a point where it just basically becomes a cliff. Now, the opposite can happen too when it comes to, self-medicating with some kind of drug, whether it be caffeine or nicotine or what have you, weed. You start small and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's the same. It's literally the same behavior. It's just the opposite of tapering off. You've tapered on. When I used to drink coffee all the time for my job, I didn't drink it for my job, but in a way, yes. I drank it because I was like, well, I need to drink coffee so that I can be alert for work. And I don't mind coffee. I mean, if I find the right kind of flavors and combinations of stuff, then I don't mind it. I used to hate it, but that was because it really felt like I needed it. We'd get up at fucking 5 o'clock in the goddamn morning just so I could go to work with my dad, who I didn't like anyway, so whatever. And then work for fucking 12 hours. But when I started drinking coffee at work, or for work, and I was a security guard back in Texas, sometimes it would be a cup every other day, and then it would be a cup a day, and then it was getting to the point where I was drinking anywhere between 2 and 3 cups a day, and it got to the point where, like, I realized how bad it was, and so I literally just stopped. I stopped making coffee altogether. Now, I did not stop drinking caffeine altogether at that moment. What I did do, though, was if I felt a craving, I just went to, I think it was the second floor, where we had soda machines, and I would get a Coke. And in 2 days, I stopped drinking caffeine, for the most part. Like, again, occasionally I would go up to the second floor and grab a Coke. But, like, when I was on caffeine, I would not only drink the 2 cups of coffee before I even got to work, but then, like, every couple of hours I would go and grab a soda out of the machine. It was bad. I mean, fortunately, I think it was like 50 cents or something for a fucking soda, but, so, it wasn't overpriced to hell and back. But, it's like, maybe it was $1, I don't know, but even then, I'm gonna age myself real quick. So, when I was at Job Corps in the early 2000s, early mid-aughts, right before I got my security job, we had 2 soda machines in the building that I was living in. And apparently this was part of the nice thing about, like, I don't remember how this whole thing worked. It was stupid now that I think about it. But they just created elitism. Anyway. So it was basically this older military base. And everybody started in the same buildings. So boys in one, girls in the other. And you could somehow earn your way into the nicer building. Now, in the older buildings, there were bunk beds to each room. So there was four guys to a room, and there were bunk beds. And but in the newer building, each room everybody had like their own little space, like separated by like a small wall or whatever, and you had these big ass wooden beds that, you know, and there were still twin sizes and everything, but you didn't have to do the whole bunk bed thing or anything. Crap. And you had your own bathroom in your little, you had a little suite with a bathroom too. And you know, that should have been normal for everybody, because in the older barrack style place, you know, you had your own room, the bathroom was down the hall, there wasn't even like a common area. In the other building, the newer one, there were wings for the boys and a wing for the girls, and there was like a common area where you could hang out, and there was like a pool table, but in that area there was also, you know, the soda machines and stuff like that. And looking back on it, it was kind of fucked up that was a thing. Somehow you had to earn your way in just a basic living space like that. And one of my instructors, he was a security guard. He was the one that was training the security program. And he's like, I think what we need to do is we need to pay everybody a full price. And then they need to then turn around and pay their, you know, per diem costs and their rent costs and stuff. Because we got paychecks that were like $30 a week. Which you could barely fucking do anything with. It didn't even feel like a paycheck. Now, admittedly, and I'm sure that if we found out how much money we were making and then how much we had to pay, it could potentially cause some issues. But at the same time, like, this is a place that's supposed to be for educational purposes. But it was essentially like, it was kind of like a jail education program without the jail. Because this wasn't something that you did, this wasn't a place that you went to involuntarily, like jail is. But it kind of felt like it. Because despite how much freedom you may have had, there was still a real lack of freedom overall. And I'm gonna get it, you know, it's largely a bunch of fuck ups. You know, a lot of people, it was a place that was an alternative to jail for a lot of people. It was like, you either go to jail or you go here, kind of thing. I thought it was some sort of college-like place, but it really wasn't. The pamphlet lied, basically. And the pamphlet was a video of some kind, I don't remember. But the whole point of me even bringing up Job Corps in the first fucking place was talking about caffeine. And in the gold house, or whatever the fuck it was called, I can't even remember. It was some stupid ass elitist bullshit. It was dumb as fuck. We had like soda cans and soda bottles. And soda cans are 12 ounces, 12 ounce cans, and the bottles are 20 ounces. And the cans were 60 cents and the bottles were $1. Which works out to be 5 cents per ounce. So it didn't matter which one you got your value's worth, which I did like, and that was cool. I used to drink a lot of that shit though. Sometimes, like, literally the first thing I would do in the morning is get up, go get a bottle of those, and then head to breakfast. Or, I'd get it after breakfast or whatever. But, 50-cent can, not a bad deal. I think they went up to like 75 shortly after I started working at the security place, though, because I think they started at 50. One of the first buildings I worked at, there was a machine in one of the offices, and it was a quarter per. I felt guilty about the idea, so I never really. I think about one, maybe two. And then at one point, one of the people who worked in the office mentioned that, you know, if I wanted, I could go in there. So like once I got the permission to do it, it felt better. Because I mean, they were taking a loss on that each time, of course. I mean, there's no way you can run a machine like that. Go to the store, buy all the sodas and stuff to refill it all the time, and each one of them only costing a quarter? Yeah, no, it ain't working like that. They're running it on a loss. There was also in another building, which I never visited because I wasn't stationed in that building, and there's like 3 buildings on this whole property that I first worked at. I was only there for like 3 months. Boss was a piece of shit. It wasn't the first place I worked at, it was the second place I worked at. I worked at 3 different buildings, 3 different properties when I was working as a security guard. First one I was there for like, I want to say 2 months. Then I worked at the other one for like 3 or 4 months, something like that. And then I worked at the last building for the remainder of my time as a security guard, which was the rest of the 5 years that I had worked there. But in the second grouping of, you know, the second property where they had the 3 buildings, there were 2 that were like really well established. They were like these twin buildings that were like, I want to say 7 or 8 stories tall. And I'd only ever been in them a couple of times because, you know, I was stationed in the one building that was further apart, further away from it. And, you know, in of itself, that was enough work on its own, even though like half the building was completely empty. Like literally there were certain floors had nothing on them. Like it was literally just a giant room and that was the floor. Like the only things that they had on those floors were bathrooms and, you know, the doors to the stairwells and then the ways into the elevators, and that was it. You know, it was a skeleton. And it was like that on like, I want to say floor 8 through 14 or something like that. So it was pretty easy to do that part of the job. But one of the main things was, you know, if a door was unlocked, go check that out. Make sure, you know, things are safe inside the suites and stuff like that. But I had a swing shift, so some days I would like, I think it was one day I would work a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then the next day, the next 2 days was a 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then the next 2 days after that was a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That was hell, by the way. I do not recommend that. If you ever get it, like, don't work flex positions. Just don't. The concept of having a flexible schedule should not mean that you work whatever fucking hours they want you to at any point of the week. It should be, I'm flexible, but I need consistency within that flexibility. So if you're willing to work at any time of the day, then you should be like, okay, I want a stable weekly schedule. And if you're gonna change it, you've got to give me at least a couple of days or more to swap over. None of this, you know, hey, here's your schedule next week. You're going to work, you know, 2 mornings, 2 overnights, and 2 afternoons. No, I ain't fucking doing that. It's not healthy. And especially since somebody who's in a situation like that is probably not getting paid well either. Every day of the week should be like an additional 50% of whatever your typical hourly pay is. So if you're getting paid $10 an hour, and every time they change in the same week, you should get an extra $5 per hour for those time shifts. So in that original, like, let's say I was making, and I believe I was making $10 an hour at the time. On the first day, $10 an hour. On the 2 days after, 15, and on the 2 days after, 20 per hour. I think that's fair, really. because you're fucking with someone's sleep schedule and daily life so hard. Like, there were days, I didn't have 6 sleeping days. I didn't have 7 days where I slept. I had 6. Because in order for me to be able to mentally swap from the overnight to the morning, after having done that stepladder routine, I had to stay up for over 20 hours. Just so that I could like be fucking dead tired the day before and wake up at 6 a.m. So I'd go over to a friend's house and play video games, or I would try to do something just to stay the fuck awake until like at least 2 or 4 p.m., which was really hard to do. And one of the reasons why coffee ended up being a big deal in my life at that point. But yeah, just taper it. If you're drinking a lot, smoking a lot, whatever, if you smoke a pack a day, your New Year's resolution should be, by the end of the year, I'm gonna quit smoking, instead of I'll quit smoking on January 1st. Because the first one's easier, the second one's almost impossible. Now I'm gonna go take a shit. Have fun.